Hey everyone, it's Speez. I just want to make a video about season 4 of Shadowlands, Dragonflight Alpha. Sadly, I haven't made any videos in a while because I went on vacation. I went to the beach for 8 days, and then that was about 2 weeks ago. A week ago, I came back, and then I had to spend a week catching up on everything, getting back in the groove of everything. So sadly, I haven't played much of the Dragonflight Alpha lately. Just been all trying to catch up in season 4 of Shadowlands. So here I am on my Resto Shaman. I just take crit at the start. I don't know which is better, crit or haste.
Interrupt.
I think they're pretty much very similar. I decided to take crit because it is a fortified week and I can get some juicy chain lightnings at the end of the dungeon. But yeah, just my thoughts of Shadowlands Season 4. I like the changes to the dungeon, rotating in some new dungeons. It changes things up. It was getting kind of stale playing the same dungeons for a year and a half, grinding the same gear, for a fourth time trying to get another ruby or changeling. It gets kind of old. I did not know the strategy here until the tank called it out just to stay left and you can just walk past that group. So yeah, I like the idea of switching up the dungeons, which is something we're going to do in Dragonflight, where there's going to be 8 new dungeons in Dragonflight, but only 4 of them are going to be in the Mythic Plus Season 1 pool in Dragonlands. So when Season 2 comes around, they rotated in the 4 other dungeons plus 4 old dungeons, just so it stays fresh. It does kind of suck that people have to learn the dungeons all over again, and everyone's going to be like, oh my god, It is, I get the idea of, like, especially in pugs, everyone just kind of has a general idea of what's going on. Things kind of falling low here. Get them up, Speez. But I think in the long run, the idea of rotating dungeons in and out, and especially bringing back the old dungeons, which is something everyone has always said for a while. You have these old dungeons, why aren't you using them for something? And, like, sure, time walking's fun, but it's not really anything to, what am I trying to say? Like, the stuff you get from time walking doesn't gear you up for the current tier. Like, it's fun for your alts that are leveling up. They can get some gear that help them do the end game stuff. But time walking doesn't help you with any end game gearing, really. But the idea of adding old dungeons to Mythic Plus pools just helps mix it up and use those old dungeons that have been sitting around doing nothing, that they can bring back old fan favorites. Brimrail Depot. Apparently you can pull the mini boss through the door. And I guess it's a good time to talk about the Season 4 fix for Mythic Plus and my thoughts of it. Ever since BFA, the seasonal fix has added a new ad that you have to kill, whether it be a mini boss or just some kind of ads. And at the start of BFA, it was like the little Cthulhu worm that jumped out of mobs when you killed them and then tried to run into other ads to infect them. And you had to kill it because it made them more powerful and everything. And then, what was it? Season 2 had, once you hit the certain percentile, all the trash you killed rezzed as ghosts and they ran to you. So once again, more ads. Season 3 had the extra, like, lieutenant ads that kind of buffed the ads around them. But then in Season 4 of BFA, they added that there's extra mobs, but they give you some kind of a buff when you kill them in the form of portals. And that's been like their MO ever since, going into Shadowlands. Yeah, the new seasonal fix adds new ads to the dungeon, so it's more stuff to kill, but you get some kind of buff from killing them. Season 2 had the lieutenants that you had to choose the power. Season 3 had the little mini bosses to give you a little buff. So
Avoid.
the mage lusted here. I always like saving lust
Self-casting.
for when the big guy charges the first time.
Avoid.
But whatever, we just ripped it. It's fortified, not tyrannical.
Avoid.
incoming.
But yeah, but at least in season 4, one thing that's different is there are new mobs, but it doesn't add them. They replace mobs
Stay away from lions.
in the dungeon, and then they still give you a buff, which is something new they're playing with. And the whole idea is there's the little guys that give you the little buff, and then the bigger one give you the big buff, and then you pick your buff at the beginning of the dungeon, and it stacks up forever. Not forever, but usually you get by the end of the dungeon, you have somewhere between 20 and 26% extra of that buff. Haste, crit. Overall, I like it. The mini boss can be kind of annoying, especially if you pull them at the wrong time. But overall, the fact that it adds extra mobs, but they're not really extra mobs, they replace mobs. I like that better. Stop adding extra stuff to kill as the seasonal fix. You can just replace mobs. Please, Blizzard.
Avoid.
Another thing that kind of changed in Season 4 of the idea is, because they brought back all these old dungeons, and a lot of the old dungeons just had insane damage, especially on the bosses, and maybe even on the trash. You can even see on this boss here. This is a plus 20 fortified, so the boss is not even tyrannical, and the boss is chunking us. So healing is a lot more important than it was in the earlier seasons of Shadowlands, where there's some bosses that did chunk basically anything in Sanguine Depths, but now a lot of the bosses in here chunk, so it's less about the damage you deal as a healer and more about, can you actually heal the damage? Well, while there is no damage, can you throw out a decent amount of DPS too? If you're not doing any healing, you might as well be throwing out some damage. But so shamans are they're not the best pure HPS healers, but they're good enough, and their damage is really good. And they have some good utility. So all around, Resto Shamans are pretty good. Holy Priest, right now, even... the tank died here. These mobs really crunch the tank. My fault. I should have been paying more attention and maybe dropped an SLT or something to help the tank. But we're all range, I think. Even the hunter range. Yeah, so there would be no one in there to help him. If I could have ran in myself. But, these two mobs on a fortified do chunk a little bit. So what I was saying, so it's really important now for your healers to actually be able to heal the damage, because a lot of bosses really pump the damage. That first boss you saw did some damage. The last two in here don't really do enough, but man, in the Karazhan dungeons, a lot of those bosses, they hit hard, so you gotta you really test the healer's ability to actually heal, on top of being able to throw out some damage when it's appropriate to throw out the damage. So man, one of the healing classes I could never really get into in Shadowlands was a Holy Paladin. Their whole idea, they were pretty good in Season 1 and 2. They kind of fell off in Season 3 and 4. But, man, just the fact that you have to stay in melee, you have to basically weave your melee into your healing. It's just hard. Not only do you got to watch out for melee mechanics, you also got to heal on top of that. All you Holy Paladin players out there, I tip my hat to you, because I can't do it. Shaman, like I said, probably all around, a lot of people will rank it the number 2 healer in the Mythic Plus dungeons. Holy Priest, number 1. What else is there? Resto Druid is also pretty good. It's just their DPS is really awkward to do, but their healing's fine. monks are low down there. They have the healing, but their damage is not there, and they don't really have good utility. So sorry, monks, not really that good. What am I missing? Discipline priests are down there. They're not good. Holy paladins are probably a good holy paladin, probably right behind a Resto Shaman. They have good utility. It's just you're gonna have some trouble with some of the healing checks. But overall, I like the idea of Season 4. Blizzard could have just been like, hey, Season 4 is just the same thing as Season 1, or the seasons before, the same dungeons. You just got to do everything again, and that's what you're getting to till Dragonflight is. Oh wow, that group. I'm sorry, I'm just distracted by what's happening on the screen here. That pool is scary. But yeah, they easily could have been like, hey, Season 4 is basically Season 3 of the same dungeons. We'll just slap some new affix on it, and hey, that's what you get to Dragonflight. I give them credit for trying something new in the Mythic Plus and in the raids. The whole idea that the raids have the faded thing, which I haven't really talked about, but everyone always talks about. Hey, they should bring back the old raids and do something with them, and they finally did, and it's interesting. I like it. I don't know if it should be going forward. Like, say it come Dragonflight Season 2 when they introduce the new raid. Should they keep the first raid still relevant? Probably not. But come the end of Dragonflight, when we have the long drought between expansions, which Blizzard always says there's never going to be as long as the one before, and it always feels like a year. At least they have something to pull out of their pocket now to keep players engaged. Like, hey, we bring back the old raids, and you can get items from them again, and there's something new to them. So, yeah, I like this experiment they're doing with Season 4. It's something that at least they're just not sitting here not giving us anything to do for the next 9 months until the next expansion comes out. They gave us something interesting to mess around with. So let's talk about the next expansion. Haven't really got to play much of the alpha in the last 2 weeks, so I'm just talking about things I've seen. Not first-hand stuff, but just about all the talents are out right now. The only thing that's not out is the tank spec for Demon Hunters, but about everyone else is out. And it's kind of funny, when they first revealed the first talent for like Death Knights and Druids, everyone was just like, wow, this is so cool, look at these talents, and we got these choices. And as they started to roll out like more talents, like next were priests, and then they started rolling out more and more, and now those original ones, and I'm basically looking at Druid here off the top of my head, the newer ones they rolled out are even cooler than the original Druid ones. And Druid hasn't had like any changes to it yet. Wow. And especially Druid and Holy Priest.
Phase 2.
Their talents seem a little wonky compared to all the other ones. And I'm going to look at this more from a healer thing, because that's what I have experience with. Wow. The Monk talent tree looks really fun to play with. The Monk looks fun. Holy Paladin looks fun, has some choices, brings back a lot of old stuff. The Shaman tree, it actually has the problem where like almost every talent seems awesome, and you can't take them all. And a lot of it is your utility and spells you had before. So they put like everything Shaman had before, all their utility, all their little buffs, into the talent tree, and you can't get them. Can't get them all now, and it kind of feels bad to be playing the Shaman and being like, man, I don't have Purge. Like, every time I sit down and make out a tree, I'm like, I forgot to take Purge. Like, but that is interesting choices. It's just like, you can't take everything, and maybe you make a you make a talent loadout that doesn't have purge, or one that doesn't. Like, another thing that always happens every time I set up the shaman talent tree on alpha is like, oh, I forgot to take the decursive. Like, I have the magic dispel, but I forgot the decurse part of it.
Phase 3.
But maybe I don't need it. Like, if I'm doing a dungeon where you don't need a decursive, I could spend that talent point somewhere else. So it's, the shaman talent tree is really interesting. That you can't take all your utility, but you could have like different loadouts. So like, this is the loadout that doesn't have capacitor totem. Maybe I don't need it. Like, I'm in a raid. Do you really need capacitor totem in a raid? Me personally, I always forget to use Spirit Walker's Grace. Like, it's just a little cooldown I forget I have. I only really use it on certain fights. So maybe if I'm doing a dungeon where I really don't need that, you can just not take Spirit Walker's Grace. So that the Shaman tree is actually probably, I don't want to say the best built one, but it's most interesting because it's the one that causes you to pick a lot of choices. The Resto Druid talent tree, which it's kind of weird. The class side of the tree obviously has like the line of, here you take this line if you're a healer, and then you just take this line if you want to be. Oh, yeah, this is where I die because I actually stepped in the sleep puddle. Now, it wasn't the sleep puddle. It was something gets dropped behind me and I run forward into the puddle and fall asleep again. Whoops. God, this pool is scary. There's just... You can get knocked off the train by storming, so I didn't want to stand in melee, and I didn't want to have storming to hit me into the future groups. But man, if you stand back here, you got the fire falling from the train before. The stupid things are putting sleep puddles down. Like that storming hit me. You can walk off the train. Yeah, but yeah, the Resto Druid tree. Like, the class tree is just like, alright, if you want to be a resto, you take these talents as the obvious choice, then you take the other talents if you want to off DPS as balance boomy, and then you take, here's your utility stuff in the middle. But then the resto tree itself, the top of the tree is not really that interesting. It's like, here's some stuff you had before, just pick the ones you want. But then you get to the bottom of the tree, and it's like, all the nodes at the bottom are awesome stuff. The capstones, you can't take them all, but I give them credit. They brought back Convoke, which is one of my favorite spells added to World of Warcraft. Any spell that just sounds silly, but then it's also actually a good spell. You just press the button and you just rapidly fire off random druid spells, and the idea that your druid is just like going Super Saiyan, throwing out all these spells, it's always made me laugh. And they also brought back, what's the other one called? God, the dot that splits. And they brought, so just the bottom of the druid resto tree is just like, oh, here's like all the cool stuff in Shadowlands that are like legendary powers or covenant abilities, and you can't pick them all in Shadowlands because you have to make a choice about legendaries you're wearing. And there's just some combinations that are impossible to mix together, but in the Resto Druid talent tree, you can mix stuff together that was impossible to mix before. Is it going to be good? I don't know, but they gave us the option. So, Resto Druid tree,
Breath incoming.
I think they got to tweak the top of the trees to make it a little bit more interesting. But the bottom of the tree just seemed fun. It's just all about how you're going to mix up the capstones at the bottom and have fun with it.
Avoid.
So yeah, I'm actually kind of excited for Dragonflight to come around. We haven't seen all of it. They're making the changes to the professions, and you like level up your professions and have talent tree and specialization in your professions now. That's interesting.
Breath incoming.
a lot of good things coming to World of Warcraft. A lot of them, they're giving a lot of feedback, and even like a lot of people complained like, how did Blizzard not realize these dungeons? Some of these dungeons were overtuned. Like, don't they have testers? Like, yeah, they do have testers, but like, how many times are they gonna run Karazhan over and over? The run of Karazhan takes like a half hour, and like they run it on a +8 and go, does that feel like a +8? I guess it did. And then they go, all right, it feels kind of hard. Let's throw it out there, and it's just the hard one, and they don't realize it's that hard. So, cut them some slack. They put them on the PTR, and like only the really good people go on PTR and test it, and they don't say. So I don't blame Blizzard for the dungeons being a little overtuned. It's hard to test stuff. It really is. So, but that's the end of my little rant. Thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully I can get some more videos out.